Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, and Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. All right, Peter, so we're already this is August, some 15 months away from the midterms, but already the outline of next year's election is starting to take shape. The Republicans are obviously going to run against a far left agenda by the Biden administration. Now, leave aside whether it's far left or not. I mean, it's clear that there are going to be many problematic aspects to the Biden administration, which such as the policies on immigration, these massive giveaways. We're now talking about this $3.5 trillion budget bill that is now pending in Congress. This is after the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that looks like it's about to pass. And there are all sorts of goodies in all of these bills. There's, green energy stuff, massive welfare payments, particularly to anyone who has any children. And it is likely, as the Republicans calculate, that they will be punished in the next year's midterms. Now, the Democrats figure that if you throw a lot of money around, you splash a lot of money, you get rewarded by the voters. They say, look at FDR. FDR, won election after election after election. You throw out a lot of money and you pay people off and they vote for you. Well, that worked for FDR. Yeah. It hasn't really worked terribly well since World War II. I mean,
it actually didn't work under FDR.
In terms of economic success, he had electoral success. He did win elections, and I think that's all they're caring about. That where they just they get people are going to vote for us. But since World War II, that hasn't really worked very well. I mean, Lyndon Johnson splashed around a lot of money. He did disastrously in the 1966 midterms, and then the Democrats had a catastrophic election in 1968. Their vote fell from about 64% in 1964 to about 43% in 1968. It was a total calamity. Bill Clinton promised a huge overhaul of healthcare, got punished in 1994. Obama also, he actually succeeded in getting a complete overhaul of healthcare. Obamacare passed and got absolutely hammered in the midterms. So I'm not at all sure that it's you could just simply buy voters off like that. That's what the Republican calculation is. As things stand, I think it's quite likely that the Biden people will get punished, not just because of all this massive spending, but the one thing that he had, we talked about this before, the one thing that Biden had was that he supposedly was the miracle cure for COVID. He promised that he was going to cure the country of COVID, vaccinate everyone, and then life would get back to normal. It ain't happening. And I think Biden will pay the price for that. All right, Peter, what's your take?
I think this is a very interesting midterm coming up because I think the Biden people have proven to be absolutely incompetent. When you think about it, you love or hate Donald Trump. I'm tired of talking about Donald Trump, but the vaccines were developed. They were being, sent out the door. People were getting them. This should have been an easy slide to second base. Okay. Seriously. Okay. And the situation at the border, if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
So I think on one level, like you said, giving out all the goodies. Yeah, there's a lot of actually lower middle class Republicans that like some of these goodies. Let's not pretend they don't. Okay, let's not pretend. All right.
I'm sure they like the the return of aid to families with dependent children. That was never a popular.
No, that's, I agree with you, and welfare is not your ticket to political success. However, there are some programs in there that I think people say, yeah, I mean, but you don't have to be a Republican or Democrat to say, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so I don't want to, it's really easy to, to just gloss over this here. And to be perfectly honest, I've been following these huge spending bills. They're very, very complicated, okay? I do enjoy watching Republicans trying to wiggle out of it. I mean, why don't you just be more straightforward, as my constituents need it, okay? My state isn't as rich as your state. Having put that aside, okay? What I find really interesting is that we have an amazingly incompetent a Biden administration. You have enormous infighting within the Democratic Party. They talk about democratic values, but Mama Bear, she'll squash anybody in her way. Okay, I mean, that's the only thing that Nancy Pelosi is good at. She's not good at governing whatsoever. Okay, she's good at intimidating and passing around the goodies on her side. What I find really interesting is that I find the Republicans, they're going to do really, really well, but in spite of themselves. I don't see a very strong positive message. I don't see the Republican Party doing a damn thing, George.
No, I think that's right. And I think that that's a difference between they did in 1994. Remember, in 1994, Newt Gingrich came up with the Contract with America, which was a very clever marketing ploy. Because he had that big event on the steps of the Capitol, in which every single Republican congressional candidate for 1994 had to sign the contract with America. So that was a good, nice piece of publicity for the GOP. No, I agree. The GOP isn't really doing very much. I think they're figuring that look, these things are cyclical. Biden is overreaching. The things that he's doing are not popular, and he'll be punished for it. And then they're going to be back in power. But of course, you have the problem that if you're in power, what are you actually going to do with it? And
what are you going to do?
Figure out, what are you going to do with it on the day Kevin McCarthy is sworn in as Speaker? What's the agenda?
Yeah, I think that, I'll take a bet on any bottle of booze that you like. I don't care how expensive it is. But what do you bet, George? Once they get to power, like, it's like at the end of the candidate film, remember, like, what do we do now? We won, okay? Right. This is their tradition. Their tradition is once they get to power, they fumble it. They have no clue. Actually, the GOP is so much more comfortable, and so is Fox News, being out of power, okay? And so that's what makes this really kind of convoluted and very strange. The thing is that, and we'll never know because you can never quantify this, but I think they're going to take a shellacking because the Biden administration is it's so flaccid right now. And like you said, I mean, this thing with COVID, it should have been a cakewalk, and they actually could do it. Because what they're doing is inflaming the Delta variant. Well, I think common sense will say that means we're over the hump. Okay, now we just have to manage it. No, they can't. You and I've talked about this before. They've embraced it, but they can't. It's this weird kind of a psychological thing. They embrace it, but they can't detach themselves from it at the same time.
No, well, I think that the problem is they're in a bind because they're saying everybody has to get vaccinated. And yet they're saying, well, the vaccines are being ineffective. I mean, you can't really have it both ways. I mean, if you're saying, well, everyone has to get vaccinated because whoever's not vaccinated is a threat to public health. Well, if you're not vaccinating, the only threat that you can be is to anyone else who's not vaccinated. How can you be a threat to anyone who's vaccinated? If however you are a threat to somebody who's vaccinated, then it's meaningless to demand that everyone get vaccinated. It means the vaccine is ineffective. So they're kind of caught in this bind, this obvious contradiction. And there's a problem because I think that the people who are not vaccinated, I think they're not going to be vaccinated. I mean, I think that we've now reached the stage where those who are not vaccinated don't want to be vaccinated. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world now to go and get vaccinated. I mean, it's free. It's, and you don't have to worry about it. So whoever's not doing it, they're basically committed to not doing it. Now, what you can now do is, of course, apply the real pressure. No restaurants for you, no theaters for you, no swimming pools for you. That is really unpopular. They're doing this in France, and it's not going down well.
This is an unmitigated disaster, what they're proposing, these mandates here. If you're a member of the armed services, it is now required of you. What a bonehead idea. Oh my goodness. So, if you want to be I was going to say an employee, but a ward of the state, okay, right, you have to give up your medical privacy and all that. See, this is why I'm saying traditionally the Republicans should do well, okay, but now the Democrats are adding insult to injury to their own side. I mean, this is all self-inflicted, because what they've done is, instead of, and I think they could, and I think neither one of us are scientists, but you just explained it so clearly, okay? Is that we're out of the woods now, we have to manage it, we're going to move forward here, and that's what they should have, every single ad. We licked it, Joe licked it, but they can't let it go. They can't let it go, and it's going to be their demise, because you're absolutely right. If you're not vaccinated, it's a choice, and you're probably not going to get vaccinated. And if you're compelled, because of employment and things like that, the resentment will be forever, forever.
Right.
Okay, it'll become lore.
Exactly, because ultimately, it's not a good look when the government is forcing you to take medication against your will. Think, wow, that sort of reminds us of all sorts of regimes that we don't like. So, we want to stay away from that. This should be a matter of free choice.
This is going back to forced sterilization.
Exactly, it is going back to
that. 3 generations of an imbecile.
That's right.
I thought we got away from that.
No,
that was 1906.
Exactly, that's right. Forced medical procedures. Now, you might be able to justify it if this was a really horrific pandemic, devastating societies, mass deaths and whatnot.
Then people would be taking it, George.
Exactly, they would be taking it. That's exactly right. Then they would be taking it. But when you're looking at it and say, when they look at the number of new cases and the number of deaths, but you say, well, basically, we're still at the same percentage. 99.5% of the people who get COVID survive. 0.5% die. The 0.5% that is part of the vulnerable population. That hasn't changed. I mean, so it's still, no matter how many times you say, whoa, the number of cases keeps going up. Yeah, but the deaths remain very, very small, infinitesimally small. If 99.5% of the people recover, very hard to start coercing them and forcing them to take a medication whose long-term effects we ultimately don't know. We've already seen some unpleasant side effects, but we don't know about the long-term effects. So, people don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it.
You can't go, and again, it's the simplest messaging that sticks with people. You can't go from vax or mask to vax and mask. You can't do it.
You can't do it, no.
Because, you're just saying, huh?
Right.
Okay, and so again, I find these things to be, it's almost to the point of being comical. There's no political proudness in all of this here. You should take this as a victory, but you can't let it go. And what it does is it, and it's this comes from the left. They want markings, they want identifiers. Oh, you're not masking, you're not getting a vaccine, you're not one of us in our tribe.
Right.
And the Biden administration, these people could have turned it completely around.
Right. No, I think that's right. I think by the more that they're whipping up hysteria and they doing these coercion, more extensive coercions than anything that was going on last year, the more they do this, the more it seems, hey, COVID is out of control. You said you were going to get it under control. You haven't done it. And then, of course, the most devastating part of it all, and Biden cannot get out of this, you're letting in people into the country who are carrying the virus. So on the one hand, you're getting hysterical about the horrors of the virus. The other hand, you're letting people in, and then they're trying to lie about it. but they can't do it. It's actually, it's been reported even in the mainstream media. People are entering the country and are carrying the virus. So what, you know, you're supposed to be the government. You're supposed to be protecting the country. First of all, you're not protecting the border. Some 2 million people may well enter the country legally, and about 18-20%, who knows, are carrying the virus. So you're the government. This is how you protect the people. It's an absolute disaster.
You're absolutely right, because it's seeping into the mainstream media. I mean, there was for months and months. The border is closed. I mean, come on, this is just asinine. Okay, it's not closed.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're absolutely right. And so again, if you're hesitant and resisting this, it's like, well, I mean, you're letting in 2 million people. Like 20% of them have it. I mean, why are you forcing me to take it?
Right. There's no argument with that. I mean, all you get is just abuse and insults from the media or from politicians.
And also, I think we need, what's really interesting in this fear-mongering environment is the negative role that social media plays in all of this, into social shaming and things like that. I mean, why do you have to go on Facebook to check what's going on with your friends, and you have Mark Zuckerberg telling you, you know, what your COVID reality is all about? I don't know what business is it.
None. I mean, it's such a fundamental issue, which is your privacy, privacy about your health and your doctor-patient confidentiality. You can't get anything more fundamental than that.
See, when I'm vaccinated, George is vaccinated. All right, everybody, it's clear here. But why are we arguing this case? So what about should if you have diabetes, should everybody know about that? Or if you're on chemo, are you on birth control?
Right, exactly.
And then, well, what is your gun status?
Right.
Okay. What is your religious status?
Right. No, I think
this is what I fear most.
Right, and this was an issue that came up during the 1980s and early 1990s, at the time of the AIDS pandemic. Whether what should we know about whether somebody's HIV positive? And the answer was no. Basically, it wasn't anybody's business. And that's the point. I mean, and therefore, are we supposed to then should I know that this person is HIV positive, or as you say, diabetes, or does it have kidney disease, or or any one of these things? No, I mean, all of that is a matter of privacy, and you cannot. And again, I am surprised there haven't been more legal challenges. But also, you cannot discriminate against people on the basis of a pre-existing health condition. Therefore, employers cannot fire someone who refuses to get vaccinated.
What are you, George? Some bleeding heart liberal? Because that was their position.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, no, that's it, and that's what's going on here. I mean, you have case law that says you cannot discriminate on the basis of a pre-existing health condition, and you have actually legislation, explicit legislation, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which says you cannot discriminate on that. So you cannot punish people and ostracize them. Go sit over there in the corner because you haven't been vaccinated. Simply that is against the law. So yeah,
this is again kind of broadening this out here. With the Biden administration not accepting the legal position of the Supreme Court on evictions, on the eviction moratorium, what I see here, and then again here with having equal protections under the law, the law is becoming very, very fluid. I mean, well, no, we'll apply it. No, we won't accept it. We will pretend it's not there. This is a very dangerous path. Okay. Right. And we're seeing it on so many different fronts. And we're going to talk about the January 6 trials after this video here. But what I agree with you. I don't understand why there aren't more challenges here, because this is case law. This is pretty. I mean, we're not lawyers, but this is pretty.
Right. That's right. Because these are issues have been litigated in the past. It's not anything new. So I'm just, surprised that there haven't been more of it. But I mean, going back to Biden, I mean, now, of course, within this $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill, there is also the promise of an amnesty for undocumented, what's undocumented something? Is it migrants or? What's the word they use?
Yeah, the administration has some newfangled language.
Undocumented.
George and I have not learned yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's undocumented something, I mean.
Undocumented non-citizen.
Yeah, I mean, the legal term has always been illegal aliens.
That is the term.
That is the term, exactly. Illegal aliens. I mean, in other words, they're not citizens and they're not of the country, and they're here illegally. So, but anyway, therefore they're promising amnesty. And we don't know whether that's going to go through, but nonetheless, it's there in that bill that they're promising amnesty. Now, this is an amazing kind of trickery, because instead of passing legislation, which is what you're supposed to do, to legalize a whole class of people, they're trying to shove it into a budget bill. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, as a way of governing, I mean, you're supposed to pass legislation, whatever it is. Boom, you have a law on this, a law on that, law here. You're not supposed to just shove it all into a budget reconciliation bill.
The interesting thing on that issue is that, I said earlier, Mama Bear, she gets everybody in lockstep. There's going to be some Democrats who are going to have a really hard time with it, because that's going to be definitely an issue for a lot of people in the midterms. And if your district is being overrun, or thousands of people suddenly show up uninvited, they're left at a bus station or something like that. Even in Democratic districts, people are going to say, "Whoa, nobody voted for this." Okay.
No question. Of course, and the numbers are. That's right. The numbers are, of course, much greater than anyone estimates. So when people say, "Oh, it's only 5 million people," basically multiply that at least by 5, maybe by 6, 7, or 8. Same thing happened with Reagan's 1986 amnesty. Oh, it's only about 750,000 people. No, it was much more than that. It was just like 10 million people. I mean, because just about everybody then applies. Yeah, right. Hey, it applies to me as well. So it's like, that's all that's going to happen. So it's an absolute piece of trickery, and it's something that's extremely unpopular. Now, of course, historically, it's also happened that presidents did disastrously in midterms and then recovered and then got reelected. Didn't always happen. Didn't happen for Lyndon Johnson. The 66 debacle led to the 1968 debacle. It did happen with Bill Clinton and with Barack Obama. I don't think it's going to happen with Biden and Harris. I mean, neither is inspired. Biden, unlike Obama and Clinton, has no real constituency. Nobody likes him. I mean, you're right to say that nobody actively dislikes him, but there's no constituency for him. He has no core support. Not like Trump. I mean, a lot of people hate Trump, obviously, but he has a fanatical support. Even Hillary Clinton. Again, a lot of people hated her. She had her fanatical supporters. People just would die for Hillary Clinton. Biden doesn't have anyone like that.
Well, you bring up a very, very important point, and maybe the most important point, because you and I have talked many times previously, is that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, forget Joe, they're in a hurry. They're in a big hurry. Okay. And I think the writing is on the walls. They already know that it's going to be a turkey shoot against them next November. So they better get a bow tied on top of this thing before the whole thing comes crashing in. Because, I mean, talk about loving or hating Joe Biden. I mean, does anybody even care about Kamala Harris? Okay. I mean, they really got themselves into a terrible, terrible bind. Okay. No, you're right. I think that in the next 15 months, they're hoping that this will be a world historic pivot. Okay, because then because if you look at these spending bills, George, I mean, they go into the next decade. Okay, I mean, they really truly are thinking big.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But it's a problem when you're thinking big and you don't really have a mandate, I mean, if you've won a big election victory, then you can start thinking big, oh, we'll spend $1 trillion here, $3 trillion there. If you haven't won big, and in the case of Biden, there are all sorts of questions about that election. So, and then you presume to do this, then you're really caught in trouble, because the public really gets pissed off, because then they think you are really trying to pull a fast one here.
If this were August 1933, yeah, no problem. No problem. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not August 1933. Okay. Yeah. And this hope that, it's all smoke and mirrors that they have some kind of mandate. And they don't, not only do they not have a mandate, there's a lot of Democrats, and we're going to find this out when push comes to shove, how much problems they're going to have here. I don't think any of it is a done deal. I think the 2 spending bills will go through. I doubt they'll be intact. I mean, this basically, it's their wish list. Of course, Fox News has got its hair on fire. I mean, big time. I haven't seen this for a long time about the 17, 18 Republican senators that are going along with it. Right. It's good theater. I like watching how Fox goes after the Republican Party, okay? And particularly when the people that go after them the most are Jeb Bush Republicans, which is absolutely hysterical to watch.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's understandable. Look, I mean, they're saying, hey, we've got Biden on the ropes. And you're going to give him a huge victory. I mean, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I mean, it's a good argument. After all, then they'll say the Democrats didn't do this for Trump. Why? So why are you doing this? Why are you being this good little boy? Oh, we're going to be bipartisan, and it's like,
well, George, this is one big cookie jar, and everybody, you don't want to be, you're coming up for re-election, and and you'll be able to kind of sling it the way you want. Well, we got this out of them, we held back the tsunami, but we got this. And again, maybe we disagree on this, but there are Republicans in Congress with their constituents that say, free community college, yeah, and that's not a particularly bad idea. Okay, the social welfare that you're talking about, that we weaned ourselves off of in the 1990s, that is going to be a different question. But there are very separate things that say, I personally don't have a problem with. The problem is that it's going to be community college. Is it going to be the University of wokeism? See, that's the wrinkle. That's the wrinkle.
That's exactly it. And of course, well, keep in mind, I mean, community college is just simply that's the first step. You don't get a degree from community college. I mean, that's just if you want a degree, you have to move on to a proper university.
And I have known many people where that first step was important in their life.
No, I think that's fine, but I think that I don't know whether the real problem that America is facing right now is insufficient number of university graduates. I'm not sure that's the immediate crisis. I think it's a real crisis there.
Of skilled people.
Is what?
We have a crisis of skilled people.
I'm not sure about that. I think there is a crisis of, if you're letting in immigrants by the tens of thousands, by hundreds of thousands, by millions, then what you're really doing is ensuring that these skilled people that you're actually training don't get jobs. I mean, what do you have now? You have a phenomenon of university graduates working in retail, university graduates, working as bartenders. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible that you can make an argument and say that we don't have enough graduates.
I do think you make some really good points, and I don't disagree with you. I'm looking at more like trades, okay? Learning how to do something. That's what I'm interested in. If it's going to be something, you're just going to read, the top 10 BLM hits, okay? Then I'm not interested in it at all. It's a total waste, okay? I mean, since we're on it too, is education. This debt forgiveness. No way. I know how to fix it. All of those endowments, they pay for it. Right. Okay? Because you falsely let these people believe that they were going to get a step ahead in life if you get this, $150,000, $250,000 degree.
Right.
I think that's a swindle. I think it's a fraud, and I think
that's it.
all you have to do is with one signature. Okay, and because that's what everyone says, he can wipe it all away. No, I don't believe that. Okay, I believe in making people be held accountable for getting the mess that created the mess that we're all in.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the whole of the university federal student loan program was a boondoggle for the universities. I mean, it was great for them. I mean, basically, you got students coming in, and fine, they all came in with they arrived with federal money. And it's great. Universities love it. No wonder. What's her name? The Senator Warren from Massachusetts. Where Harvard and all these great universities are. She's all for. Yeah. That's loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness.
And let's do it all over again.
Exactly.
Let's do it all over again.
And the more you offer it, the more the universities raise their fees. I mean, the university fees have gone through the roof over the past decade. Now, how has that happened? Well, because basically, the government just simply underwrites it. So of course they're going to, they offer everything at huge prices because somebody else is going to pay for it.
For the younger people watching this video, in the early 80s, I was an undergrad at the University of California. I was at UC Davis. They have a quarter system, not a semester system, a quarter system. Guess how much I paid per academic unit? $12.
Yeah, nice.
$12. Okay, that's what made the University of California a really wonderful place. How many hundreds of thousands of out-of-state students moved to California and worked in a cafe for 9 months, I think it was. Then you get residency, okay? It was a good deal back then. Now it is a scam.
Right. No, it really is a scam. And that's why when you think of the rate of inflation, you got a rate of inflation like this, university fees, boom. There's no parallelism between university fees and the rate of inflation. So that basically, it's been a real boondoggle for the universities. And just look at, what these university administrators, the kind of salaries they make, like president of Harvard. I mean, he earns more than God, as they say.
Well, some of these people make more than governors and the president of the United States.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be an educational institution. You're not supposed to be lining your pocket with with huge funds. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace.
And that's where we got the studies programs. All these studies, they should all be defunded. All of them.
Right.
Okay, if you want to do Mongolian dance studies, watch YouTube. Okay, it's free.
No, I think it's a nice idea. I mean, I actually think that is a non-starter, because all that's going to happen is that you're going to go to court and then you're going to say, hey, I can't go and study this. This is basically racism. There should be no discrimination. Yeah. Because if, let's say, you have African American student who says, well, I want to study African American studies, and they said, nah, we're not.
That's American history. That's a part of American history.
Right. Well, that would be fine if it's American history, but. There's a specific thing that people want to study, which is African American studies or queer studies or gender studies.
Okay, George, let me just put it this way. We're not going to agree on this point, but I was institutionalized by the University of California for a decade. I have very hard feelings about this.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't think that you're going to win this one in the courts. I think the courts will say there can be no discrimination where federal money is concerned. So basically, people are going to have to want.
But the counter argument is you're not denied that. You're not denied that education under a different rubric. So pack sand. Okay. Anyway, all right, guys. All right. We got 15 months ahead of us, so we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But it is very, very interesting how both parties are in a bit of a muddle right now, when it should be very, very clear what the Biden administration, the Democrats need to do to shore up their shortcomings here. And the Republicans usually, as usual, just completely clueless, walking in the forest here. All right, everybody, we're on Locals, so go to thegaggle.locals.com. George and I are doing one-on-one Zoom interviews with gagglers. The store is up. We're doing Q&As. We're going to do one this week. George has already done a live stream. I'm going to follow very, very soon this week. And we have a super chat coming up on YouTube. And I always leave the most important thing to you, George.
The most important thing is the tip jar, which is perilously empty. You know, it can be almost, it falls over through its emptiness.
You can hear the ocean in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can listen to the ocean. Yeah. So there he is. There's Buddy. Getting dangerously thin because of the lack of tips. So, but in all seriousness, anything you can contribute to the tip jar would be most welcome. We don't have Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates whipping out their checkbooks to help us out. So, you know, we rely on the kindness of strangers. We appreciate all of your help, and the more you can help us, the better our product will be. So remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. There's Buddy. Bye, Buddy.